Hello everyone, welcome back to another English online session. Today I am going to continue the narration or the explanation of the chapter Silk Road. So we have understood the narrator took rest for some time. Now he was explaining the experience he had in Hor. When they resumed their journey from Hor, it was dark at that time. After 10:30 p.m., they decided to stay in a guest house in Darchen, which turned out to be a very difficult night for him. The rubbish dump in Hor made his cold worse, and herbal tea also didn't help him. One of his nostrils was blocked. As he lay on the bed, he wasn't getting sufficient oxygen and he checked his watch. He was at 4,760 meters above sea level. The height was not more than Ravu, but he would be out of breath several times a night. He was so familiar to this night time disturbance, and he was scared this time. He started breathing from his mouth. He was tired and hungry. He switched back to breathing from single nostril, and as soon as he was about to sleep, he would wake up shortly. He was not feeling well as his chest felt heavy. He sat up and it cleared his nasal passages. He was curious. So here if you look at these lines, we can understand how difficult he spent his night there in this place. He just found it very difficult to breathe, and he had tried his all method. Even though the height of the place he was stayed less than Ravu, but he couldn't breathe properly. That's a problem he has faced. So he had managed, somehow he had managed to breathe and spent that night there. The narrator tried again by lying back on the bed. The same thing happened. He was in the land of signals where something told him not to do it. He wasn't able to go to sleep this time. When he was sitting up, it made him feel better as he could breathe properly and his chest felt light. The opposite happened as soon as he laid down. He held himself up against the wall, but he wasn't able to relax. He was afraid to sleep now. A voice inside him told him that he might die if he would try to sleep, so he stayed awake all night. Tsetan took him to Darchen Medical College the next morning. It was new and looked like a monastery with a door which led to a large courtyard. They went into a dark and cold consulting room filled by a Tibetan doctor who wore nothing kind of random articles which he expected. He was wearing a thick pullover and a woolly hat. He asked him a few questions while feeling his veins. He told the driver that it is cold and he had an effect due to cold and altitude change. He gave him some medicine and reassured him that he will be able to do the kora. So here the problem still just troubling him, but he couldn't sleep at night. He managed to wake up all the night because he got an inner calling that it is not advisable to sleep because it create a very difficult situation for him. The very next morning, this driver, Tsetan, took him to the hospital, and he found that it is like a monastery, and the doctor also won't look like a regular doctor. He just found that this narrator got cold, and altitude change made him put him in this situation. So he just given some medicine and told him the narrator can do his kora. There is nothing to worry about his health condition. The Tibetan doctor gave him a 5-day course. He came out with a brown envelope which had 15 screws of paper. After having breakfast, he opened the after breakfast package, which had a brown powder which he had to take with hot water. It tasted like cinnamon, and lunchtime and bedtime packages were nearly the same. They looked like sheep tongue. Both had small spherical brown packages. After taking the full day medicine, he slept peacefully that night. Tsetan left him in Darchen when he came to know that he is going to be fine. He told him as a Buddhist that if he had passed away, it would not matter, but it would be bad for business. Next day, Darchen wasn't looking so bad. It was dusty, partially ruined, and had lots of rubble and refuse everywhere. The brightly shining sun in the blue sky gave him the vision of Himalayas. Gurla Mandada, he was able to see a little bit with the clouds suspended over it. So now he took medicine from this Tibetan doctor, and he was explaining about the medicine. It has separate packages, after breakfast package and lunch and dinner package of medicines. All are similar, and he comparing with this with the sheep tongue, and it is in spherical brown packages. So Tsetan understood that he was going to be okay. The narrator was going to be okay. So it is okay dying there as a Buddhist, but it is not good for business. He was expressing his opinion. And the final few lines were talking about the weather or the atmosphere of the place Darchen. It was not very bad, but still some sort of dusty, all those things find there. Darchen had some basic general stores selling Chinese soaps, cigarettes, and strings of prayer flags. Every afternoon, men would gather for a game of pool. They would sit around a shabby table looking strange in the open air while women washed their hair in iced water of a small stream which flowed all the way to his guest house. Darchen had no pilgrims, which were a setback for him. He was told that in the peak season of pilgrimage in this town was filled with visitors. Some brought their own accommodation, such as tents which were set up in the plains. He felt that he had arrived at the place way too early. One day, while he was thinking about his options, while having a glass of tea at Darchen's only cafe, he concluded that there are limited options for him as he made little progress on the self-help program on positive thinking. So he was talking about the basic facilities available in Darchen. He could buy soaps, cigarettes, Chinese soaps and cigarettes, or strings of prayer flags. Everything can be found, and he was next explaining the activities of the people. Sometimes these men just gather to play this game of pool, and women, they just wash their hair in the stream, icy stream. And also another thing informed here, he was very early. He was not in the correct season. He couldn't find any other pilgrims came there, and he was informed that in the season time, many people, A huge number of people used to come there. Even they come with their own accommodation, like they just pitch the tent somewhere there and they live in their tents. So they can find a lot of people. And finally, he was talking about his self help program on positive thinking. He was having difficulty in sleeping, which hadn't made it easy for him. He had no option other than to wait until the peak season of pilgrimage. The trail was much frequented by the travelers. He could do kora alone, but it was a seasonal session because of the route blockage by snow. He had no idea if the snow was cleared, and he was not feeling good about dirty ice that still resided on the bank of Darchen's small streams. He had been facing communication problems since Tsetan left. No one knew much English to answer his basic question. He met Norbu in a cafe, which was a small, dark, and vast with a long metal stove. The walls and ceiling were twisted in multicolored plastic sheets of different colored stripes. It was made into a frame and big shopping bags, which were sold over China and in many other countries of Asia and Europe. Plastic was China's successful export along the Silk Route. Here now he was talking about the difficulty he was facing by the time. He was finding it difficult to sleep. It didn't change much, and he was waiting for the travelers, the other travelers, the visitors, and still the route was not clear. It is filled with ice, dirty ice. So, and another thing he was talking about, he was facing the communication issues. Nobody there could answer him even the basic questions he asked, his basic needs he asked in English, because Tsetan left the place to let him remain there and make a progress in his health and complete his kora. This man was waiting for the other travelers. Finally, he got a company named Norbu. He just carried this stove, the metal stove, and they met and they had a friendship. That cafe had only one window, which he would take so that he could see his notebook clearly, and he would also bring a novel with him to pass time. Norbu once saw his book and asked if he could sit opposite him at his unstable table. He asked him if he is English after his ordered tea. He told him that he was English. The protagonist guessed that he must not be a local, as he was wearing a wind cheater and metal rimmed spectacles, which were of Western style. Norbu was a Tibetan who worked in Beijing at the Chinese Academy of Social Science in the Institute of Ethnic Literature. Norbu told him that he had come here to do kora. The protagonist was happy. Norbu was writing academic papers on Kailash Kora and its importance in various Buddhist literature works. He had never done the kora himself. So, as the narrator expected, he got a company in Norbu, and he also good at English, and they could communicate. When they met in a cafe while ordering the tea, after looking at the book, they just brought there. The narrator brought there. He found that this man knew English, and they had a conversation, and the narrator was happy that he understood that Norbu also came here to do his kora. Norbu was excited when he got to know why the protagonist was at Darchen. He said that they could be a team who are two academists who escaped from the library. The protagonist believed his positive thinking strategy was working. Norbu was also staying at a guest house just like him, and Norbu was as ill equipped like him. Norbu kept telling him that he was too dull, boring, and tired to walk, and he was fat. Norbu was not a practicing Buddhist, but he was an enthusiast. Originally, the protagonist predicted that the truck would be good in a company of any deep believer, but he found Norbu to be an ideal partner. They decided to hire some yaks to carry their luggage, and he had no intention of lying down flat over the mountain. Norbu finally said it is not possible for him while he collapsed across the table laughing hilariously. His tummy was also too big. So now they decided to move together, and two academists. He was saying that they were two academists now just got a chance to get out of the library, like getting real experiences. Both understood that they were ill equipped, so they decided to hire a few yaks to carry their things so they can move without any difficulty. By the time, also, he is not a deep believer, but our narrator identified that he would be a ideal partner for him, and they just found each other, and they decided to just move forward and complete their kora. So this is the chapter explaining the narrator's travel and his experience to complete his kora to reach Mount Kailash. So on the way he was watching a lot of things. He just explained it in this chapter. Hope you understood the explanation. Now just read the text. Don't forget to have a dictionary while reading. We'll join you in the next class. Bye. Take care.